Hello, dear chess friends, welcome to our course and welcome to our first game. In our first video, I will present famous Alekhine Maroczy game played in 1923. So, what is about our first game? Our first game will be in chapter dedicated to neglecting the center. So, that course would be about how not to play chess and would be about typical mistakes that are widely played here and there worldwide, actually on all levels. So you will see that our final level would be dedicated to epic fails on top level. So you will see some of top players, maybe your favorite players in action, doing terrible mistakes. But first game is about neglecting the center in the game, and that is the game Alekhine Maroczy 1923. Alekhine led white pieces, and let's now start with the game. He opened with d4, black played knight f6, where Alekhine played c4 and e6. All that looks normal. After knight f3, black accepted challenge and transferred to queen's gambit after knight c3, declined with bishop e7. Okay, bishop g5, black castled, all that is normal, e3, and now knight e4. That maneuver is well known, but it is rather played in some other positions, because here it helps white, giving him easy play. Of course, white must take on e7. Evidently, there is no other option, right? Knight e4 is not promising, because after taking, there is must to play this. Okay, black has very free game where looks like white can do something on using dark squares, but white knight cannot come to e5. That's important. After f5, black will have enough of play with threatening and organizing c5 or e5 and generally playing on the king side. All that is well known. Alekhine played bishop e7 natural, and now don't take, play queen b3, ask black to take first. So rook c1 may lead to some problems about queen b4, intending to harm white structure, and to use that pin, Alekhine just eliminated all that threats with queen b3. Normal move, developing move, asking black to take, and black decided to take. That may look risky, but actually it is not. It is important for black to finish development smoothly. He played c6. Now Alekhine played bishop d3. Maybe we should rather suggest rook c1, but anyway, knight d7 will practically force white to move the bishop, where black can take on c4. After bishop d3, knight d7, castling, we must stop for a moment. I want to suggest you here to find the plan for black. And here, the first important of three key moments in that game. First move is relative mistake. Next mistake would be terrible mistake, and the mistake after that terrible mistake would be fatal mistake. But let's go step by step. You will see three absolute nonsense performed by such fine player as Geza Maroczy was. Okay, in 1923 it's fair to say Geza Maroczy was pretty old, much older than Alekhine, but it is also important to say, accordingly to some statistics, that in period 1906 and 1907, Geza Maroczy was, accordingly to statistics, best performer in the world, maybe the best player. So 16 years after, simply we cannot understand his terrible performance in that game. So what is that bad move he played? He played f5. First, I want to say what should be played. The normal continuation, especially after white moved bishop already from f1, is to take on c4. After taking on c4, white will recapture probably with bishop. Bishop will waste time. Bishop d3 was played, and now bishop c4. Black will play b6. What's the idea? Idea is to play bishop b7. That cannot be prevented. Rook c8, rook d8. All that will happen for sure, and then to choose c5 or e5 depending on situation on the board. Black will have all his army on last 3 ranks, or let's say first 3 ranks, right? But his game would be so easy, his play would be so free, his pieces will easily come to the game, smoothly enter the game, and he will inevitably activate pieces fully with c5 or e5 depending on situation. Evidently that's something white cannot prevent. White would finish development rook c1, rook d1, but black will have excellent chances to equalize. Now let's switch to f5. That is terrible move. Why? First, let's see what's idea of this move. If idea can be to prevent e4, okay, I must admit that may make sense. But if idea is to transfer knight to e4 with knight f6 and knight e4, that must be criticized because that is nonsense. White will just take that knight, install his own knight on e5 weakened spot, and dominate with knight against the bishop. So f5 is terrible move because it weakens e5 spot. Don't do that at home. Think twice before moving pawns, because every pawn move, remember that every pawn move is more or less weakening move. Sometimes sooner or later such weaknesses will pay off. So weakening squares behind that pawn sometimes can be dangerous, sometimes it is not, but still more or less every pawn move should be considered as weakened move, so you should think twice before advance. f5. What should white do? White normally played rook c1. Rook comes to file that will be soon open or semi-open, very important fact, so it just belongs there. Now it is time for next terrible move performed by Geza Marozzi. g5. Another terrible mistake. What's the idea? Here idea is definitely to attack. But how to start? Move is bad on many levels and from many points of view. First, let's consider situation in the center. You will see that black is not better in the center. So white controls center better. Black has some pawns, right? But there are some weak squares, and definitely white stays better in the center. If you do not control center better, or let's say fully, you must not go for flank activities. Especially for pawn activities, with king's castle to the same side. Maybe if there are chance on the board you can do that, but in that situation position is not blocked. Maybe it looks blocked or closed or to say precisely fixed, but that is definitely not blocked and white can open it. g5 is move. Weakening king, wasting time, creating weaknesses and doing nothing. So what to do as white? Idea of g5 is to attack on the king side, probably transferring rook to f6 and h6. Rather not g4, h5, h4, something like that. So what to do as white? Well, very calm move, multi-purpose move and fantastic move, knight d2. What's the idea of this move? Well, if black doubles on h file, white can just easily defend h2 punct with moving rook and playing knight f1. That is trivial. But the idea of knight d2 is not just to defend h2. Idea is to launch decisive counterattack. What counterattack? Why counterattack? Well, there is typical advice and very well-known advice, typical response. If opponent goes for flank attack, do counter-strike in the center. So just launch counterattack in the center and you will win the game in style like here. Here I must admit, quote I found in some book that attacks often fail, but counterattacks rarely do. And that is fantastic. That is fantastic and easy to explain because every counterattack also has some psychological component, psychological aspect, and no one likes to attack and then suddenly to switch back to defense. After knight d2, black played rook f7. Now we see white's idea, that is to play f3 and normally e4, right? That is the move and that is the plan that will lead to opening the position. Why to open the position? If you have better development, better activity, open the position. If you have safer king, or let's say if opponent has unsafe king, open the position to get access to it. So after we open the position and white pieces will just invade and get enormous activity that can be used directly to attack on opponent king. But we still didn't see all. Geza Marozzi still has some miracles to surprise us, to shock us, and to demonstrate, I do not know what to say, let's say, terrible assessment of the position. He played e5. He weakened king, he stopped attacking, and now he opens the center to help white to get access to opponent king. Too many nonsenses. f5 is terrible mistake, g5 is absolute nonsense and terrible ridiculous move, but e5 is then already committing a suicide. Now I suggest you to react as Alekhine and to punish it. Alekhine won game instantly. That was move 14, and on move 22 Marozzi resigned. Can you believe game lasted for only 8 moves? At that moment it is maybe not problematic to believe to believe something like that happened. The problem can be to believe that in that moment black lost in 11 moves. That is move 11 black played f5, and on move 22 he will resign. But 2 terrible advances, f5, e5, g5 just ended the game. I had dilemma about that game. One option was to put it in that chapter, to open the course with that game, using it in neglecting center chapter. Other option was to present it in chapter related to bad pawns advances. But maybe these advances will make sense if a center would be closed. Black just neglected that center can be opened, and still I wanted to present here that so instructive game. f5, can you believe black played f5, g5, e5 here? What a suicide. f5, g5, knight goes back to organize counterattack, and e5. Let's switch back to the game. How to continue as white. Of course, white played c takes d, black plays c takes d, and now c file is open, so white rook perfectly works. With move e5, black just invites white, opening all doors to get mated. Absolutely one of the worst moves I've ever seen. Actually, You will see in that course the worst moves I've ever seen, so only one can be the worst, but you have many candidates, so you can choose your favorite one. How to react as white? Well, natural, classy reaction. Before black plays e4 to block the position, play e4 yourself, open the position, activate all your pieces, launch enormous activity, launch decisive counterattack, mate opponent king, and win in style. Black decided to take. Okay. Nothing good, nothing bad. That is just equal to other moves. Everything will lose the game. Rook f1, and now e d4. Black maybe hoped white will play queen d4. That would be epic fail from Alekhine. But Alekhine was already in 1923 on top level, and something like that cannot happen to him. Here black will have fantastic possibility queen c5 to force draw. Maybe old Maróczy wanted to force draw this way against terrible opponent. Terrible attacker, right? But let's see. First to say that that presented variation will lead to inevitable draw. There is nothing to get. After queen c5, white can try with that. But after taking there is knight c5 with tempo. And really there is nothing white can do to avoid draw. So what you do here, I suggest you once again pause the video and get your own decision. I will tell you right now, the fantastic move queen c7 ends the game. Practically ended the game. What's the point? Knight is pinned, and if knight cannot move, that means bishop will stay closed. That means rook will stay closed, and that means black cannot finish development to help the king. Game is over. He tried with king g7. King goes active. If all opponent other pieces cannot go active, okay, let's enjoy king's activity. Rook f5. You take that with rook, and the rest of game does not deserve any comments. Black try with queen b4 here to deliver some check. Even that check would give nothing but rook g5, and sooner or later there will be mate. Maróczy here decided to resign. Nice and sweet miniature 22 moves, and Maróczy decided to resign. Looks like, I do not know, looks like he planned to commit suicide since the move number 1. Because knight e4 with knight c3, very risky idea supporting opponent development. Now he missed taking with b6 as explained. It's difficult to believe, hard to believe that Geza Maróczy was not familiar with that. Even if so, he should find this, because really there is nothing white can do to prevent activation of black rooks with liberating c5 or liberating e5. But f5, motivation to do that is unknown to me. That was the 5th round of that Carlsbad tournament in 1923, so maybe he wanted to take risk with a lot of games after that to improve the impression, to improve the standings, right? But white to lose the game this way, if you can play normally with chances not to lose the game, with chances to score the win or draw. f5, terrible mistake without dark square bishop. That cannot be suggested, because there is permanent weakness of e5 square. That knight on e5 on d7 must move sometimes to get able to activate bishops, but other pieces, but then e5 square would be accessible to white knight, and white knight will jump with enormous power. After f5, rook ac1, normal move. g5, terrible mistake, weakening king. There is no attack. Knight anyway will be removed with idea to open the center. After rook f7, there is f3 with e4, and e5 definitely side, as I like to say. There is nothing to do after c takes to avoid defeat. There is e4. Black tried his best setting dirty trap after queen d4 to trade queens with forcing draw, but Alekhine earlier predicted queen c7. I'm pretty sure that move paralyzes black army. Now queen c5 will not work because pawn is still on d4, there is no check, and white will just play queen d8 with infiltration and easy win. Rest of game is not interesting to us because everything will win, and after rook g5 black decided to resign. A short and sweet game, and I find it nice to start that course related to epic fails, and that is a really epic fail about center. Black neglected the role of center. He attacked on the side when center was not secured. White opened the center, and that was just well-deserved punishment. I want with these words to conclude that video, to wish you all the best in your future career and many similar destroying your opponents in your future games. Punish them for careless play and neglecting importance of the center. It is time to switch to next video. Let's go.